2 years ago today, President Obama signed his signature health care bill into law. The White House today not marking the occasion with any candles or big celebration. Instead, it's releasing this ad.
We've got people who were getting a raw deal from their insurance companies.
More insurance companies are putting a lifetime cap on health insurance benefits.
Friday before I was to have my double mastectomy, got a letter canceling my insurance.
People with pre-existing conditions who couldn't get coverage, or their kids had pre-existing conditions and couldn't get coverage.
They kept saying that it's pre-existing, but I don't know how it can be pre-existing on a baby that was just born.
It is heartbreaking.
The healthcare system is broken, and it caused my mother's death.
I was not going to allow another decade to pass by where we kicked the can down the road because it was politically convenient to do.
Well, 2 years later, and the law is still politically explosive. Just yesterday, the House voted to kill a key part of that law, and the Supreme Court is now set to hear arguments beginning on Monday over the course of 3 days about whether the federal mandate is constitutional. A Republican group firing back today, releasing this ad.
How you doing, Sam? This is not good, Sam.
Liberals in Congress put government bureaucrats in between your doctor.
Really hurts, huh?
From diagnosis to the most complex procedures.
I'm a little concerned. I want you to lie down for me.
Liberals in Congress promise to lower health care costs. But Obamacare actually increases costs and sticks taxpayers with a staggering $1.7 trillion bill. And while our economy continues to struggle, Obamacare actually raises taxes on small businesses and costs America 800,000 jobs.
Oh, Sam.
Yes, Doc?
You're living on borrowed time. Get rid of Obamacare.
So what do everyday Americans think 2 years after the law was passed? Let's bring in our focus panel. A mixed group today of Democrats and Republicans. First, let me ask you this. I thought that ad by the president was pretty powerful, pretty well done. For those of you who do not like this law and have not liked this law, did it soften you at all? Anybody?
No.
No. Nobody? Jay Townsend, not at all?
No. At its core, this thing is no more popular today than it was 2 years ago when it passed. It is a process problem, rammed through the Congress in the middle of the night, passed by members who had not read the bill.
Right, but when you see the baby there and the father talking about pre-existing conditions.
It's at its core. We still took over 1/6 of the U.S. economy to fix a problem affecting 10% of the American population. The American people have never gotten over that. Obama had no mandate to do what he did.
Kevin McCullough.
Megan, I oppose Obamacare, but that spot's effective because it does talk to people's hearts, and so it's hard to go against the narrative. I run a media company. It's hard to go against a story that is playing out before you. Of those two ads, President Obama wins the messaging if those two are played back-to-back on any primetime television set.
You know what? I actually support
sorry,
the law,
go ahead. You're Eric Averbaum.
I support the law, but I think it's a lousy commercial. I think it's poorly scripted, and I think he's using cheap tricks, even though I support the law. I wonder why, as a country, we're not saying to ourselves, what's broken about the entire system? The entire medical system in this country doesn't work. That's the problem.
Yeah, but people don't think that government is the way to fix the problem. Right. Government name me a government program.
What is the way? When you look at, just take what's in the ad, the baby being denied coverage because of a pre-existing condition. What is the answer? I mean, President Obama said he came up with one, and now that baby's protected.
I don't think we should have politicians revamping the medical industry. It's like having dry cleaners rebuild the trade centers. It's ridiculous. You should have doctors and people who are healthcare providers figure out how to do this. And you know, Ron Paul made a really good statement when he said when he was a doctor back in the 60s and 70s, it worked fine. Didn't cost nearly as much.
Families and neighborhoods would step in.
Right, families, and you didn't have the lawsuit threats that are driving up the cost of health care.
When this whole debate got started, the Republicans said we do have a plan. We'll subsidize, we'll give vouchers, we'll help needy families make the bills. It won't be we ignore those who are in need. We just have a different approach. Nonetheless, the Democrats passed the bill, as Jay put it, rammed it through.
Yes.
And there was a lot of anger about the way it was done. No Republican votes.
It's when they're
Go ahead, Tracy Davis.
I think when Senator Kennedy, right when he got sick, the Obama administration decided that it was going to be a partisan, vote, and they rammed it through. They did not make any effort to make it bipartisan. From the books I've read, that's true, and that's exactly what happened. And so, but even the Democrats had to go home to these town halls. And one of the things about Obama being a narcissist is he's great on the campaign with all of his charm and everything, but he lacked empathy for the hurt that the American people were still feeling with no jobs and this huge government overtake.
Healthcare too is so personal for people.
Yes, but it was going to be
It's one thing when you have the government, jumping into your lives and helping with, well, I don't know, taxing you. We expect that. But healthcare is so personal, which is why you saw even a lot of Democrats say,
yes,
I don't know, hold on about this law. I want to ask you, Zerlina Maxwell, what do you think?
Well, I think the ad is effective because it touches into what's most important, which is the personal stories.
But separate and apart from the ad, how do you feel about the health care law today?
I think, well, it's interesting that the individual mandate is the question before the Supreme Court, because that was a conservative idea in the first place. And so now that that's...
No, it wasn't. It may have appeared in the ObamaCare bill, but most
No, I'm not talking about ObamaCare. I'm talking about Orrin Hatch in the 90s.
But when I look at sort of, the attitudes about the health care bill, I feel like, you tell me whether I'm wrong, there is still lingering anger over the way in which it was forced.
Yes.
And Bernard Whitman, you're a Democrat. Let me ask you. There were no Republican votes. The polls in America showed the American people were against it.
Yes.
They were always majority against it, and it's grown over time, the number of people who want it repealed. Right. Almost 40 Democrats who voted for it got kicked out in the 2010 midterms because of their votes. The American people still don't support it. Can we have a law stand like that? Can it be supported? Can it be accepted by the American people under those circumstances 2 years later?
I absolutely think it can, and here's why. Let's talk about some of the facts of the law. 86.5 million people were covered by preventative services last year as a result of this law. This law begins to push back against the unbridled attack on women's health that the Republicans are intent on waging. How? Because 20 million women were screened last year for things like breast cancer and bone density, perhaps saving tens of thousands of lives. It ended pre-existing conditions for everyone, including pre-existing conditions for being pregnant or being a victim of domestic abuse. It also ends the lifetime cap on health care coverage, so that if you're running the risk of losing a spouse, you won't have to worry that you're going to lose your house. Or if you're born, unfortunately, if your child is born very ill, you won't have to decide between caring for the rest of your family and caring for that child. 30 million Americans are going to have health insurance as a result.
Hearing all of that, which support and like hearing those things. Who wants to be denied coverage because you have a pre-existing condition? It's like, that's when you need coverage, right? But hearing all of that, you're still not persuaded that this is the solution. Why not?
No, because we don't want to be Europe. This is the United States of America. Don't tell us that we have to take health care. Don't tell me as a Hoosier in Indiana that I have to do what they want in the Beltway, because you know what? It doesn't work. Governor Daniels from Indiana, he knows more what's good for Indiana. Governor Christie knows more what's good for New Jersey. It's unconstitutional, and my Attorney General is going up next week to say, hey, get out of our state, federal government. Don't ram this down our throats. It's wrong and it stinks.
Michael, let me ask you, the president not marking the anniversary in any meaningful way. They're sending out, Cecilia, some domestic policy advisor, on Twitter today to talk about it.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Why is that?
There's nothing wrong with that, because they're personal stories, just like the ad. These are personal, individual stories. That's what's going to sell. Even if there is a concern by administration folks that the president might not be the right messenger, the message is still significant and intact.
She's on Twitter right now if you want to talk to her.
And if you look at those ads, those are very representative of the people in this country that support it. And the last point, I teach at 2 universities, and going to Bernard's point in terms of all of the benefits of this bill, there are young people there that now get extra coverage because of this bill.
That's the issue. Who pays for it?
But nobody questioned that.
As I see, a lot of people like what they saw in that ad, and they like helping people who need help.
Free is great.
But who pays for it, and at what cost? Because the thing is, people who have health care already on both sides of the aisle have been concerned about what's going to happen to their own.
But can we talk about the economic benefits of this law?
Everybody, okay, Kevin, go ahead.
There's a piece here that's missing, and your opening question was, is the ad effective? The ultimate answer to this issue is, will the program be effective? And looked at the different studies and the outcomes of what's going to happen when you project basic economics onto it. It goes bankrupt quickly.
Jay?
Right. Here's the problem. You didn't need Obamacare to fix the problems that were discussed in Obama's ad. If this thing were popular, and if these talking points that we have heard for 2 years had actually worked, he would be having a birthday bash today. He'd be celebrating this.
Excuse me, I run a small business, and health insurance costs for me have gone down. I get tax credits for giving health insurance.
How many employees do you
run a small business? I run a small business. I've got 5 people covered. My insurance premiums increase. I just renewed my policy.
But
my health insurance premiums increased by the least amount they have increased. By the least amount they've increased in 5 years. $10 a person.
It was ran through without the American people wanting it, and now there are going to be 8 members of the Senate that are going to lose their seats that are Democrats. They're going to have to go back, and the Supreme Court is going to make it all come up again and bring up about the anger again. And
the other part of this that people have to realize is all the benefits are great, and the administration is very smart because we're going to give you candy first, and then we're going to have you pay for it down the road.
It's about people's lives.
The other part of this no one's worried about is once the government's going to start taking care of everything, they're going to start telling you how to prevent certain things. You know, we don't want you drinking soda. Oh, you have to prevent diabetes. Oh, you weigh too much. And you're slowly, you don't want the government intrusion, you're going to get the government intrusion because they're going to start telling you how to do it.
$2 billion as a result of this.
Thank you all so much.
So unpopular.
That's how they've been ending lately. They just have to keep going and going. It's still a hot button issue, and we still are interested in how you feel about it as we sit on the eve of the case going up to the Supreme Court. Let me know. Follow me on Twitter @Megyn Kelly.